So we've tried to narrow it down to focus this on really four big questions that we wish clients would ask us. And you can kind of categorize different types of firms with each kind of question that they're asking. So what are these questions?
Yeah, so it's how to get more clients,
Then how to make more money.
how do we get the work done,
And finally, how do we build and improve our team? So going into that first one, how do we get more clients? And when we say get more clients, we really mean a consistent, predictable, and profitable method of the client generation process.
and so we're going to kind of start saying these somewhat dirty words like sales in this episode. So hopefully that doesn't, make you want to turn it off immediately. But one of the things is we want to work backwards.
Welcome to Tech Talks, the ultimate podcast for law firm owners looking to revolutionize their practices through technology and strategic business management. Brought to you by 4Eyes Systems, your trusted partner in creating custom software solutions and reports to ensure that everything works together seamlessly to drive your firm's success. Each week, your hosts, Rusty and Sam, will dive into the world of law firm operations, exploring how you can leverage technology to streamline your intake and phone systems, improve your case management workflow, and maximize the potential of custom software solutions and insightful reporting. From working with hundreds of law firms across the country, we understand the unique challenges faced by law firms today. That's why we're committed to providing you with actionable advice and expert insight to help you stay ahead of this rapidly evolving legal landscape. Our mission is to be your trusted voice, guiding you through the intricate maze of legal technology and management strategies to help drive predictable growth and ultimately increase your firm's profits. Whether you're a seasoned attorney or just starting your own practice, we've got you covered. Join us as we uncover strategies for staff management and delve into the essential metrics, key performance indicators, and predictive leading indicators that will drive your firm's success. So if you're ready to transform your law practice into a more profitable, thriving business, tune into 4Eyes Tech Talks every week. Let's unlock your firm's true potential together.
So imagine this. You're a visionary attorney steering your legal ship through uncharted waters. But there are four critical beacons that could guide you to unprecedented success.
Brace yourselves, because today we unveil the ultimate compass for legal success. Four game-changing questions that hold the power to transform your law firm's destiny.
But get ready to unlock the secrets that will revolutionize where you invest your effort, resources, and expertise.
All right, Rusty, but why should firms listen to us?
Well, these are the problems we cut our teeth on and that we've solved over my 20-year career. And Sam, I think you've been working with folks like 6 years. Is that about right?
That's about right, yes.
All right. And the different paths that we're going to talk about have been scaled significantly to like 8 figures from 6. So a pretty big jump there. And these are the strategies that we've used to get there. And we're also going to try to help you, avoid wasting your time and your money by making sure you don't start down a path that can't grow with you.
All right. And again, we have worked with hundreds of law firms across the country and get asked all kinds of questions. So we've tried to narrow it down to focus this on really four big questions that we wish clients would ask us. And you can kind of categorize different types of firms with each kind of question that they're asking. So what are these questions?
Yeah, so it's how to get more clients,
Then how to make more money.
how do we get the work done,
And finally, how do we build and improve our team? So going into that first one, how do we get more clients? And when we say get more clients, we really mean a consistent, predictable, and profitable method of the client generation process.
and so we're going to kind of start saying these somewhat dirty words like sales in this episode. So hopefully that doesn't, make you want to turn it off immediately. But one of the things is we want to work backwards. So we use a system that one of our partners came up with, Richard James, who is a bit of a law firm guru, and it's called the PCLC. Yeah, it's the perfect client life cycle. And what that perfect client life cycle is that someone calls into your firm or submits a form, and we call that a lead. Then they either set an appointment or they don't set an appointment. They show up, and then they hire. So that is the perfect client life cycle. Is they set the appointment, they showed up, and then they hired.
And then so we'll also be going into phone management, and you'll hear a lot about this in next week's episode. But basically, this is going into having consistency with your sales process and who's answering on the phones and making sure they're doing it consistently.
And then we want to talk about where those people that call you come from, where the folks that submit the forms come from. And Sam, I think that's more your expertise. So you want to talk about that a little?
Sure. So again, going back to Richard James, asking people who may we thank for referring you to us. And basically like just tracking your referral process and where they're coming from. And beyond that, then marketing and making sure that all of your marketing is being tracked through tracking numbers. You have a lead source and you know what the ROI is on that lead source. So not just are you getting leads from this particular source, but are you actually getting clients who are paying from that source? And then what the ROI is compared to what you spend. All right. Question two. So that was how to get more clients. The next thing we kind of talk about is how to make more money. So this will be in episode 3. And so basically this is asking how profitable are we by not only by office, if you have more than one office, but by case type as well, if you're marketing for more than one case type. So we talked to a lot of law firms who are making money, some $3, $4, $5 million law firms, but this doesn't necessarily mean that they're profitable. A lot of times as they're growing in revenues, they're also growing in expenses. And it's often come to us where like, hey, I'm a $7 million firm, but I am not profitable. I'm barely breaking even. So Rusty, can we talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. One of the first things you have to do is you have to identify your revenue streams. And some offices have a couple different ways. Let's talk about different case types. Where's most of your money coming from? So you want to look at that, whether it's bankruptcy, immigration, personal injury, tax law. There's all of those guys, or which one generates the most revenue. So that's the first thing you want to identify. And then what you have to do is you need to know what you have to do to measure that. So we're talking about, okay, where's all the money come from? Well, how do you know? How do you see that consistently? And then how do you use that to either maintain your current revenues or to increase them? And so we do that with a couple different processes, and I'm just going to list them out here. And those are collection calls, relationship calls. You want to have a budget setting and review session. You want to be able to break down your revenue by category. And then you have to be able to do your trust reconciliation for those folks that have to do it. And then the things that we measure, the metrics that we're going to say a lot about, because that's what we do, that's what we live and breathe. We want to look at things like your collection amounts, your aging on your account receivables, how quickly do you get paid for your work? And then some things that people don't necessarily always think about, but the profit per dollar you spend on payroll and what percentage of your gross revenues are payroll. But then some weird stuff too, like profit per attorney. These very expensive staff members that you have to be generating revenue. And so we have a couple different principles that we look at to make sure that we're getting there. And Sam, you want to get into those?
All right. So basically those principles look like the more money that you get up front, the lower your cost of collections will be. And another principle is having the least expensive person doing almost everything that they can do well. So there'll be a couple resources in the show notes and on our website about this, but I think those are kind of the principles that we're looking at with this main question. All right.
Great. And so what are the primary aspects that affect profit? And like I said, we're identifying those revenue streams, but what are the critical drivers for revenue by category for your firm? So that's going to be one of those aspects. Another one is the expenses by unit created. So when we talk about that, we mean, what are the expenses that are necessary to collect a dollar from your, aging, your accounts receivable? What is the expense to get a client to hire? What is your marketing expense to get that to happen? And then all the way through the sales process. And then lastly, what are the expenses required to file a case and to manage the workload that you have?
Awesome. So rolling into that, we come to our third question, and this will be in episode 4 of this series. But basically, it's how to get the work done. So this includes how is your work divided? What is your inventory to do the work? And where is the bottleneck?
Yeah. So going back into the principles that we want to drive to get through this is that we want to make sure that we're producing happy clients through this process, that we always keep that case moving through the different stages. So that's what we do when we work. And when we do that, we have to make sure that we're over communicating with the client. That communication must be our strength. And that in and of itself will keep your cases moving. Your clients will be more responsive. And then finally, what your drop-off rate is. So your drop-off rate would be people who contacted you who hired but didn't finish their case, didn't continue paying a retainer, for instance, if they were like Chapter 7, Chapter 13, never got through the end of the case. And then as part of that, we have to be able to look at something that's a workflow term. It's called bottlenecks. What are the stages in your case management that slow you down the most? And identifying those and either removing them entirely or increasing throughput. Again, sorry for all the technical terms, is how we get through there.
So, Rusty, what are some of the metrics or things that firms can measure to make sure that this is moving and how they can identify those bottlenecks?
Yeah, one of the easy ones are your cases in versus cases out. How many people are hiring you versus how many cases you're closing. So, more hiring you than you're closing, you're going to start getting a much higher workload. You're going to be holding on to cases. And then also, like I was talking about a moment ago, you want to make sure that you break those cases up into stages. And then you have a different individual or team that owns those stages. For example, we have one team that does a document collection process, right? For those cases where you have to call your client, make sure they bring in some information or documents. And then we also want to be able to look at how many of those cases your individual agents or your staff members are moving from phase to phase. And that kind of gets into how do we build and improve that team who is doing that. Sam, you want to speak on that?
And this is the fourth question that we're kind of going through, and this will be episode 5 of the series. But I think this is the biggest thing that firms kind of take for granted. They're so normally focused on those first 3 questions, getting more clients, getting more money, and getting the work done. That this is kind of like the last thing that firms think about. And oftentimes something that you need to be maybe a higher level law firm to kind of acknowledge. But this includes, how do we hire and promote character? How can we create a culture of growth and accountability? And how do we make the employee's journey a win-win? So this is a lot of having the right person in the right seat. And we're referencing like the EOS system to go through that. And again, this will be linked in the notes. And then creating incentives and having to measure those incentives. So how are you incentivizing each department or each employee to get the work done so it's a win for them and for you? So Rusty, what are some things that we can look at when we're going through this?
Yeah, like Sam mentioned, we use that traction system, that entrepreneurial operating system. And in case you ever want to look into that, it's a book by Gino Wickman where he kind of goes through how you set that up in your firm, how you manage it. But anyway, one of the things you look at for your staff members is you grade them on a system of plus, minus, or minus is what these staff members are. And what you use that for is to break those employees into sections, which are your A players, your best people, your B players, who are about average, and your C players who need a lot of work to bring it up, or you have to be able to measure what they're doing, making sure they're getting back on track. Or, another one, as Richard says, let them be a superstar somewhere else. So not your firm. Then easy stuff like, are they logging in late? How many absences do they have? That's the stuff you want to look into very regularly, on top of a bunch of other things that I'm sure we'll get into.
Awesome. So now we've gone through these kind of big questions that we are hoping law firms ask us. We want to also organize firms into different levels. And this is just because there's different answers or different recommendations based on the different levels. So this will be more clear as we go through this series, but kind of asking, okay, what firm am I and where do I fit right now? Because the questions and these answers do need to be tailored to your firm for where you are now. And it might change as you kind of go through and progress through these levels. So Rusty, do you want to go into the first one that we look at?
Yeah, and I do want to say this. There's no shame in being in one of the lower levels here. We all started there. And what you have to do is you have to decide when you're at that first level, are you going to be creating a chicken shack or a skyscraper? And if you want to create that skyscraper for your business, you have to make sure you have a very solid foundation. So just to give you an example of where we started at level 0 firefighter, I was working with Bert Diener, who's, the co-founder of this company. And, he had just opened his law firm in this small town called Snow Hill, which is where I'm from. And the office we worked out of was over top of lingerie shop. And, not that embarrassing, but it felt like it at the time. And you had this little door in between the lingerie shop and I don't even remember, a coffee shop, I think was the other one. And you had to climb these stairs to get up there. And then there were like 3 different offices in there. And then me and 2 of the other guys who worked there worked out of the break room. We had like our laptop set up on a counter in a break room to make that happen. And one of the characteristics of that, not to, put too much of a pin in it or not to hammer the point or belabor the point, is that you're broke. Maybe you're getting in some revenue, but you're definitely not getting in profit, and you're definitely not making as much as you wish you were making, especially after you've done things like go to law school and spend all that money on that. You want to make sure you're getting a return on that investment. And also you want to make sure you're giving yourself a better quality problem. And you're not dealing with the same problems day in, day out. Like, we forgot to make the deposit, or hell, we just didn't make money this week. So we're trying to get past that point and then getting into things like making more money. And then we have a couple other levels.
So what I wanted to explain here too is that if you're at this level, probably your most important question right now is, how do I make more money? And that answer there might look different for this particular law firm in this point than somebody that may be a little bit more advanced, that is a $7 million firm, but not necessarily making more profit. So the next levels we'll consider is level 1, an attorney level, probably like a single attorney firm. Level 2 is you're getting into the manager level. Number 3, you're at CEO level. And then level 4, you're at the investor point. So again, these will become defined as we go through the episodes, and we'll be giving examples of each, and especially firms that we work with. But we wanted to kind of paint this picture here in the first episode. And so over the next 4 episodes, we'll be diving really deep into each of these questions.
And we're going to talk about the different processes, technology, and software to, level up faster, the different measurements and reports to make sure you don't go backwards and that you continue to improve.
So you can see all of the episodes and any of the resources that we talk about in these episodes at 4eyes.com/podcast.
And I forgot to mention one of the resources, and that's that optimization calendar. So when we're talking about the PCLC up there at the very beginning, where you're getting more clients, did I say calculator or no? Calculator, sorry. And basically you plug in your numbers, how many leads you're getting a month, how many hires you're getting a month, and your average case value. And it'll show what little tweaks to your processes will do and how it creates exponential returns on that investment in that time. So anyway, please go to that 4eyes.com/podcast website, and you'll be able to submit some questions that we may talk about in future episodes, or we may provide you directly with more resources to answer them. And lastly, you could hire us or talk to us, and we do it for you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the 4 Eyes Tech Talks. I hope you learned some actionable strategies to attract more clients and grow your law firm. Remember, consistent small wins over time lead to massive growth. Try implementing just one tactic from this episode and see how it goes. We'll be back next week with more strategies to take your law firm to the next level.